Hello and welcome to another episode of Tomorrow by Design with your hosts Louis, Anne, Leanne, and Sid. From informality to designing for dignity, that's the conversation that we'll be having today. The very esteemed, very eloquent, very enigmatic Dr. Kigara. There's a lot of gems in the episode, as you can already tell how long it is. Let's get into it.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tomorrow by Design. Today we will be talking about informality and formality. What exactly does it mean, especially in the context of Africa and the built environment? We have with us the esteemed Dr. Kigara Kamweru, who will be giving us insights. Honestly, guys, you're not ready. So grab your cup of joe, cup of tea, cup of uji, and David, I'm sure you'll be responding to some of the conversations that we are having, or you'll be having reactions just as much as we did when we had a chat with him over tea. So yeah, I hope you're ready, but I know you're not.
Woo. I mean, we keep saying we are, but I keep saying that we're not. Every time I think I am,
Yes.
Nope.
Yeah. Mambo bado.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's the beauty of just life and living, is that you think you know, and then surprise.
Anyways, informality.
I wonder how many synonyms we can think of that mean informality.
Informality, wow, I was just going to go to semi-formal.
Okay, or informal.
The English escapes me. Informal. Yeah, not formal. See, formal.
Casual. I wonder if you say informality, casuality.
Casuality.
Sorry. Bad joke, bad grammar joke, but yes.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, what that looks like actually. Does informality look like?
Because you know how language, like you can have words that are synonyms, but you can't replace them in a sentence in a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of what they will mean. Right? And I think the one example that I have consistently come across, and it always makes me laugh, is leftovers and remains.
Leftovers and remains. Wow. Okay.
Yes. Like technically it's something that is, it's a well now I can't think of anything except those two words.
Well, there's another one in Muka from the trauma that I've been through the corporate life. On to call it as trauma, but nini ad hoc has some connotation to informality. I think has some resemblance, has some ties there.
Oh, it's like it's improvised, it's on the go.
It's make on it the go. I don't even know why you'd use that casually in conversation. It's not even very formal in itself. I mean, it's informal in itself. The
word itself sounds like informal, but in a suit.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for. Yes.
It's informal with a mask.
It's informal with a mask. Oh, by the way, atuko sisi wawili solo. Tuko na watu wengine, and others are sending postcards from Mombasa. That's it, by the way.
Is there no internet in Mombasa?
Mambo slow. Labda latency unajua ndio kubwa sana.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yes, okay. I think we can. I don't know if there were any. So we've said ad hoc, informal, casual. I don't know what that does really.
Yeah.
Familiar, even friendly.
Friendly. Ooh.
Yeah.
Friendly. Which
and is it going?
Now all those words. Let me pose another question over there. So all those words that we come up with, is there anything or any type of person or anything that you've come across in Nairobi ama mahali popote where you've been at that would describe that? So let's say, for example, friendly. Off the top of my head, I would say, depending on who you go to, the street hawkers, they are friendly, generally are friendly. or
I would say the smoky pasua guys.
The smoky pasua guys, umegonga hapo. Yes, the street food vendors. Yes, those guys.
Yes.
Actually, our friend
I saw Annie's hand up. Yes, in spades.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to tell you guys to see the chat, but my ambient noises are preventing us from communicating.
Actually, not that bad, to be honest, but okay.
Okay, I'm seeing chat. Unofficial.
Unofficial,
I know
my God. Sort of this double negative.
It does sound so terrible. But yeah, generally, I was trying to find a remnant of something.
A remnant of something.
Right? Mm-hmm. Either way.
Anyways, but yeah. So, street food vendors. So I just come from a hike now. I've been uko those sides of Sokomjinga. I came Sokomjinga, so there were those the vendors, the market vendors uko. I would say friendly. I don't know if it's friendly or it's aggressive. They know how to sell. They will know how to sell by force, by fire. They will sell. Anyway, so I think that's also another one. I'm trying to think of anything else that comes into mind. So we have tumesema street food vendors. Semi-formal. Kuna nini? The shoe shine. I don't know if people do that still. I do that a lot. I still go to like shoe shine guys once in a while. Those guys also have banter. And you can get to read a newspaper and still also have like kidogo conversation with somebody over there if you're not that introverted with the next person who's next to you. Anyway, there's a whole lot of interactions that what I'm trying to get at is that there's a whole lot of interactions that we have on a day-to-day when we're hopping from one building to another, from the one that we sleep in to the one that we're working in, or whichever.
Louis, I just wanted to let you know I finished chewing something I had on my table here.
Okay, very nice. Yes.
I wanted to talk. Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
Wonderful.
And there you have it. That is the one and the only Kigara, who will help us understand more about this informality and everything over here. The informality and just generally how we can better design spaces, taking into account these people that we really tend to have interactions with. I don't think we really fully include them in these design spaces, or at least think about it when we're talking about the urban context. But anyway, I guess that's it. Also the word informality, because I know in very many conversations when we talk about informal settlements, I think I've had this conversation in not on the episode, but on any of our episodes, but I think offline also as well, the whole phrase of the urban poor, and just generally some of these terms that we give to systems that aren't what we'd call typical or formalized as far as the Western interpretations are concerned. So yeah, we'd want to rethink that. So how would you define informality in the African urban context?
Well, you are talking about an urban environment. I would say that probably informality, two words are coming to mind immediately, even listening to you guys talk. One is unstructured, but that needs explaining. Basically, you are talking about not conforming to known or accepted structures. When something is out of that kind of an order, then you might consider it to be informality. But I think the caveat that needs to be added there is that it is quite possible for something that does not adhere to accepted order to also develop its own order. And therefore, it may be called informality, but actually it has its own internal logic, internal structure. But the other word that comes to mind is spontaneous, sometimes unpredictable. Yeah. So yeah, I would say unstructured, spontaneous, relating to the urban environment. I think those words might mean something that comes close to what we generally call informality. Yeah?
Spontaneous, yeah. I love that. And it's spontaneous to response to, I would just going off also on your point that you've added, I would say spontaneous as a response to a gap that is there in the environment, or an opportunity that people are trying to leverage. I remember there was this point that came up in a chat that we had before that you were talking about, or rather I was ranting about, I was ranting about the traffic that we have in Westland sometimes. And there's this there's this partner that was thrown in the works that about, it might be a bit inconvenient for us who we think are in traffic. We might think it as inconvenient, but also at the same time, there's these vendors who, for them, this is their opportunity for them to make a sale, spontaneous. I think now that also comes clear, especially with that story. The vendors who try to sell you what is it? It's always like wipers or a retriever if you're lucky, a golden retriever, or also whatever it is that they're selling is also very spontaneous. I missed. I will add as well, but yes. Any thoughts, Lian?
The pets the pets are usually, they catch me off guard every single time.
I know.
Oh,
But I think the important thing here is that the informality is not necessarily a negative thing.
No,
It's not,
yeah.
it's not to be immediately categorized as a
As
bad
negative.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think informality does also represent some very, very positive qualities that maybe we can discuss in a little more detail later. But it's important that we do not see informality as meaning bad or negative.
True. Because I would also say, like, with the spontaneity that you had mentioned, informality also represents flexibility.
Yes.
Because sometimes when something is too structured, and there's pressure that is coming in from either changing dynamics, whether they're social, economic, or otherwise cultural, then things break because there's no flexibility when structure is very rigid.
Yeah.
You see, if you are a sympathetic person, then you may do things that basically extend sympathy to the other person, sometimes outside what would be the norm, you might probably be in a counter somewhere, maybe say a reception desk, and there are guidelines as to how to deal with visitors or guests, but you may see somebody who comes in and they are not going to conform to what you have laid down as the order. And if you bend the rules a little, then you may be seen to be acting informally. And we have those kind of situations where you are bending the rules. For example, people come late, say, to class, and rather than throw them out, you find ways of accommodating them. Somebody may say that is becoming now a departure from the formality of a lecture or a class. Probably it was informality, but yet it represents probably some higher principle.
Yeah.
And the higher principle here being the empathy with the other person here.
Empathy, yeah. And actually that brings also some other point or question that I had. So there's empathy, there's the whole point that you've also brought about, that informality doesn't have to be or shouldn't be seen as negative, shouldn't have a negative connotation towards it, or shouldn't have to be every single time. But do you think is this one of the ways we'd say, looking at it from a Western point of view, has been misinterpreted with time? My God, English. So yeah, with time and us adopting like these systems that are more westernized or at least more global, I'd say, would these connotations have come from that, or what other connotations or what other misinterpretations have been born as from us adopting these global systems and some of the consequences that they've done, one of them being, of course, sidelining?
Well, I think a comparison with the Western systems would lead us into really a complex, a complex argument here about what values each represents, the Western and our own. But I would rather see this as the inherent humaneness in our own cultures. Causes us to, I used the word empathy earlier, but in this accommodation of empathy, then we find that we are departing from the kind of systems that have been used to lay out our cities. We accept, for example, that there are some people who may be unable to find the resources to build proper houses or to buy proper houses or rent proper houses within the city. And then that you see that broadly, we are beginning, we get to accept that they can build where there is some space that is not being utilized. Sometimes you see that that is happening on riparian reserves or other places like those. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily going to be a good outcome for the city. I know very well that a city is a system that requires to work and work well.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that should be protected. But why we have a soft heart to some of these breaches, some of these infringements, probably in itself is a reflection of our humaneness. Yeah, and maybe we need to temper our humaneness, but we can still have some order in the way we organize our spaces and the way we organize to accommodate our work. Okay. Yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make there is that there is a lot of empathy. There is a lot of even sympathy. Yeah, that you get to see that seems to allow for infringements to happen, and then we are unable to control that. Beyond a certain point, of course, then you have to say this is now not working. The supplies we need within natural distance. But of course, then when there is a next guy, you get into a tragic situation.
Yes.
You see where I am?
Even for the kiosks themselves, there's more competition among the sellers. And so over time, it becomes, a source of conflict because now you're stealing my customers. Na ni mimi ndio nilikuja huku wa kwanza. Instead of it being like a complementary network of, one person has kiosks, the other, or rather, it's a food vendor, basically like River Road, where if you want anything car related, there's an area there. And if you can't find it in shop A, you might find it all the way in shop AA2. Yeah, so you finished all the letters of the alphabet and you started again.
Yeah, that's what they call this a tragedy of the commons. First person looks quite logical, even useful.
Yeah.
But the second guy, at a certain point, then you're having negative outcomes for everybody.
Yes.
Interesting. So from these whole spaces there, and I like what you said, Leanne, about tough was about it's now getting to a point where it's now street vendors or vendors rather and sellers competing against each other. It's become like tough wars, So but now looking into that and then looking back at where we even started in the beginning, looking at either if there's any traditional African could be spatial actually physical features that we did, or community practices that exemplified sustainability long before it became formalized. I think if I start, I know from the get-go, when we're looking at it very typically, and this is something that I think has been said before, it's not anything new. When you look at the materials itself, something as simple as the materials that we use, were using before, were already sustainable in the sense that they were locally available, very little skills needed to set it up. About the structural integrity, we've come a long way, I know, but there was still, it was still really decent at the time for our needs and what it is that we were doing. We weren't building any skyscrapers or anything, but yeah. So, the mud huts, which now, if you rework it for efficiency and everything, would become the same mud huts, the walls that we used to make from mud and straw and possibly also wood as reinforcement in between right now would be rammed earth walls. Others doing like in Kigara who've now done the soil blocks and everything. Concepts that now have been made have been added a few things to make it a bit more structural, integral, and now more modern. But from the onset, that's something we already started with. I don't know if there's any other thing or any other practices that we used to do before then. Ayo.
Okay. You were breaking off a bit there at the end as you were speaking. I don't know if it was just on my end or for if I caught this right, it's that is there a way to integrate or to revive our traditional, our pre-colonial ways of living and building into modern architecture and just shaping how our city looks like? And the city, I mean, I know right now we're mostly focusing on cities, but I don't think that should be the only focus, because sometimes when I go to my grandmother's place and I'm looking at, it's almost like a symbol to show that we've made it, or someone in that family made it, is to leave the mud hut, to leave anything to do with straw, and everyone just builds with stone. And I'm just thinking to myself, is this really, and given that maybe our parents and our parents' parents who came to Nairobi a little bit earlier on, that was what was shown to be a marker of development. But now, with what we know, can we shift even how our villages are built?
There's a lot that we can learn from indigenous architecture.
Mm.
And if you are to sit and make it a habit to just study traditional architecture from different parts of the world, even here in Kenya, we have quite a lot of variety. You have people who live in the highlands, the agricultural people like Kikuyu, the Kamba, the Kipiskis, and then we have the nomads, the Maasai, Turkana, that kind of thing. Then we have Swahili people, the coastal towns, town Mombasa, Lamu, and that kind of thing. But go across Africa and study carefully the kind of solutions they come up with. Yes. One of the most interesting things I see is the way they are able to somehow interpret and express small human needs, small basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs a place, if you come to my house and maybe I'm not in, or I myself am in the house and need to get out briefly, you find that there is a little bit of setting that has been put there.
Yeah.
It's a small thing that allows you to, better need. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or you look at the way, if you look at the Swahili house, for example, and the way it treats privacy.
Yeah.
And if you know about the culture of the people there, you know that privacy is a big issue, especially when it relates to the women. You can't just knock on a house and expect a woman to open for you if she's the only one in there. So how do they handle this? You see that there's some kind of a transition, a little twink house for people to make. And you see it, look at the element they call the daka, that is usually at the front of a Swahili house. And look at what happens even outside of the daka, as I was saying. There is a transition. You don't just come from the public space and go into the private space. There is an in-between. And especially this in-between, which you see in almost every African traditional architecture. I mean, any kind of a settlement or houses is critically important so that you don't just move from one and into the other. You look at the Wagikuyu and how they build their huts. Even once you enter the door, actually you are confronted by a blank wall, and you have to navigate. And I would have to say you have to navigate very carefully. If you are going to go build that space there. So this accommodation of the human needs, and I can give even more examples.
Yes, please.
It's a characteristic that you see in very many, in almost all cultures of Africa. And this is a lesson to pick because, all of us have their own needs, little things that we don't express, little things that are not going to turn up in the laws of Kenya. You are in the middle of town, you need to sit down Where do you get that? Has somebody thought that you might need that? It's a very human need, Or you can talk about sanitation in town, and again, another very human need. How do you deal with this? You can talk about privacy. There are many ways in which this is can be seen, especially in living environments. That is estates, what we call estates, residential areas. The ease with which privacy can be breached, and the need, of course, to keep protecting that. Creation of transition, so that moving from what is a public space into a private space is signaled, maybe by some kind of a space in between. It could be even marked by some steps or a turn. A turn. You look at the Masai Manyata, you look at a single unit, and you see that in many cases you have to turn in order to access. And by the way, once you enter, you have to turn again in order to access the inside. So, literal accommodations of human needs. I called this, when we were talking earlier, I remember using the term circumstantial accommodation. But let me give you one more example. Okay. I was going to point to the old cities of West Africa, Goa, some of those you find in places like Mali and so on. A lot of those old cities also tend to have a heavy Muslim majority. And because of the earlier issue I was pointing out about the requirement for modesty, especially among women in the Muslim cultures, you will find that there is a different kind of circulation. It's fascinating when you sit down to study it, to see that people go up to the terraces. Now, in the terraces, you are fairly private, and you are not worried about anybody bumping into anybody who is a stranger. But you see that the houses are connected at that level of the terraces, so that apart from the street level movement, you find that it's happening about 2 floors above ground. That tends to connect various houses, and that one is mainly used by women, and they are able to meet and visit each other and so on without worrying that they will compromise their modesty. It's fascinating. But you see examples like these across a lot of Africa.
Okay.
It's something we can learn from, and just that accommodation of the human needs is something that our cities can benefit a lot from, I think.
I think so too. I don't know. I think I was trying to envision that in my head, and I'm thinking, wow, I could actually, like, I can interact with people in my area that are select, and not because I'm trying to keep away from others, hiding from them. Introverts would love this idea. But I don't know what the rest of the group thinks about, like, because even for vulnerable groups, that would be an accommodation for them that would work really well. Thoughts?
To be honest, I wanted to say exactly what you just said at the end, like, especially for vulnerable groups, I think that would be such a useful way. So let me soften up. But yeah.
Okay.
Introverts unite. Oh, thank you very much. Hi, Dr. Kigara. How are you doing?
Hello, Annie.
Thank you for me. I was just listening in.
Hi.
I was experiencing. I was engulfed in one of the most, non-informal sectors that we have in Nairobi. The matatu. Engulfed is the word. I was all up in there, just noise and communicating with the makangas, and I was just like, when you guys were talking about the smoky people and the shoe shines, I was like, makanga matatu.
Yes, some of them are actually very friendly.
Yes, so I've been very interested when you guys are now talking about circumstantial accommodation, especially now thinking in the transport sector, maybe there's, an angle there. Because I was listening to these guys, some other podcast, and they were talking about how, like, the reason why, let's say, informal systems, or if we're to focus on something specific, like non-motorized transport, are often so sidelined, is because when you're a driver, the way you think as a driver is not the way you think as a pedestrian. So, when systems are being created and you're thinking from the lens of a driver, not so much will support the lens of anyone else. So, for example, as a driver, you don't want there to be any surprise features on the road. You don't want a surprise tree in your way. You don't want a surprise corner or curve. But, as a person, you just walking, a pedestrian on the sidewalk, having a nice surprise like a random tree you didn't expect is so fun. You're like, yay, a tree. I don't see that on my route every day. I'm thinking about how now that applies to informality and this information about circumstantial accommodation. So I'm easing into this following my very recent experience. So tuendele, and then I'll flow with you guys. You said informality is flexible. Call me informal.
Yep. If anything, actually, what I was about to really, what I was just going to add was, I agree with that whole point on what do you call it? On the Western, the not really Western, but the African countries where it's predominantly Muslim. I've seen that happen, and I totally agree with that. Where how you can see it physically manifested in the building, in their designs and everything. So I realized actually learned recently that the mashabia, the patterns that are used in Islamic architecture and everything, the mashabia that's used in the balconies and everything, that what Kigara said originated from the original purpose of giving the lady, specifically the lady who lives inside their privacy, just enough privacy that she can still be able to enjoy the sunlight or enjoy the view or whatever's outside, while also shielding her from not too many unwanted eyes. Let me just say that, and let her be without being somebody or anything like that. So, which I found really interesting, and again, totally agree with the whole discussion on making sure that also the vulnerable groups are included, which I think comes to something else we'll be talking about in a bit. But yeah, I agree.
Great. Oh, I mean, there's so much to talk about when it comes to buildings in the city, and even like with the different spaces when we are accommodating those unique human needs. Excuse me. Because when I think about people in wheelchairs, every once in a while I'll see someone in assisted mobility, but I won't see them a lot. And it's not that I know the average of people who might be in such conditions, but then I usually wonder to myself, is it because it's such an inconvenience for them to leave the different spaces where they feel they have control, that their humanity is not, they don't feel less than human in particular spaces, and so they would rather stay in those spaces than mingle with the rest of us with the broken sidewalks and the random tree or electrical post.
Yeah. I mean, if you put yourselves in their situation,
I think you're going
tough.
to say shoes again.
Yeah, Louis. If you put yourself in their situation, you'll feel like you're not wanted in these spaces because they're not really making any moves to accommodate you or anything like that. So yeah, maybe you're right, Leanne. Maybe they just would rather avoid it altogether.
And I wonder, like with the examples that Dr. Kigara, you've given us of the transitional or in-between spaces, are there any that you've come across that are accommodating of, let's say, like the situation we were talking about, the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, those of course you have to you have to deliberately build the mean. Sometimes we have to make laws for people to understand that this has to be brought in. So we do have, and as you know, there is what we call universal design. That basically tries to make sure that we are creating humane environments. Clearly, the question of accessibility is covered in there, but there are quite a number of other things that are covered in there, and these are the lessons for architects and designers, to become more and more aware or more conscious of those needs, those human needs. Because the interesting thing is, the moment you get into them, the moment, for example, you start designing for accessibility, you realize that you are creating an environment that is good for everybody.
Yeah.
Nothing in the principles of universal design or accessibility that would inconvenience, your regular guy. If you design a space that is accommodative of people who are vulnerable, maybe they are impaired in one way or the other, you actually create an improved environment for every person who is going to be there. There's no contradiction.
True.
So it's a question of becoming more aware and accepting this, embracing this, where normally steps are the norm. If you put a ramp to accommodate people who have some kind of infirmity or mobility issues, you do not make it worse for the able-bodied. You actually help everybody. You might even find that more people want to use the ramp than the steps.
That's
If you create, when you create door hurdles that are accessible, easy to reach, you create doors that are easy to open, do not require a lot of force to open them, or switches that are easy on the fingers. I mean, all that may help those who are vulnerable, but there is no doubt that everybody else will feel that is also good for them.
Yeah.
When you create environments that are flexible, well-lit, and so on, you're improving the environment for everybody. So the thing is to raise the awareness of the designers and to actually use some of those principles of universal design as the norm in design. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you think would be, well, effective might not necessarily be the right word, but for want of one, an effective way to raise that awareness?
Well, we need to talk about it. We need to, you see, the construction of buildings and the construction of the city, in a way, it is still a very technical matter and is still in the hands of professionals, people who are taking their time in those areas. What we need to focus on is to raise the quality of public opinion. What does the person on the street know to be right or wrong, to be good or bad? And so we need to be able to engage more and more with the public. And the idea being to raise their awareness of these things so that when they form opinions about what a good building looks like or what a good street looks like or a nice place looks like, there is some information, some education. Yeah. And over a short term, I think, we get informed public opinion on these things. So that even when untrained people are speaking about their city or they are speaking about their living environments, their built environments, they can have a better judgment as to what is good and what is bad.
Yeah. Hopefully they can also demand better.
Oh yes,
engaging.
Of course, when you have a public opinion, then you have political pressure because informed now exerting political pressure to get what they know to be good.
Oh yeah, definitely supports. 100% agree.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hope springs eternal. That's what I have to constantly remind myself. But sometimes you even see like a building that when you look at how many stories it is, and then you go in, you're like, this was definitely not worth like 200 shillings. But then the execution, my goodness. You're like, okay, so it's not just about the money.
You sound like you're having flashbacks of a good space.
I am.
We'll revisit.
I was just like, yeah, it's not just the money.
It's not something behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the there's an what's it called? Cultural observation where the new money coming up, and you can clearly tell that yes, they have the money, but the taste is running after them, but they're faster.
They're faster.
Yeah. You really are pointing your finger at something that is quite tragic.
I am telling you.
Money we are spending in building environment, creating and investing in buildings, vis-a-vis the quality of the resultant environment.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, that pivots around another rather misunderstood or probably not fully understood issue, which I don't know whether it came up in our last conversation, is the centrality of shared space.
Right. Yeah.
The spaces that we share, the things that we share, are really what underpins quality. It's not what people do in private. It is what is actually in the public domain.
Yes.
When the public domain loses its quality, the overall quality of life is low.
Yeah, because now people don't even have a place where they can reference or feel like their worth is high.
Yeah. They like one of the main things like we as built environment professionals should have in mind when we're having these cities and buildings coming up is how are we making the environment and the services more dignified, right? Because I remember in our last conversation now Dr. Kigara was talking about how the core of cities in general is the shared experience of all its residents, all the shared experiences. So if there's a connect between like shared spaces, there's people who don't enjoy themselves in this space, and there's people who are in a much better position to enjoy the space, are the only ones who are benefiting from it, let's say. Then there's obviously going to be strife, there's obviously going to be inequality. So I'm just echoing what he's saying. I'm just echoing like our previous conversation. What Mwalimu has said. That's exactly what I meant. Mine is to echo what Mwalimu has said. That is exactly what this was.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that there's something that we mentioned earlier. The higher order. What's the higher principle that is guiding, aside from the technicalities of square footages and load bearings? What's that higher order? If it's shared space, do we want to create or to reduce the social economic barrier? And if we were to scenario play it, let's say with a citizen's journey map, what does that look like? So it's somewhere where someone from one side of the world can sit and feel like they belong, as well as person A and person Z. They'll sit and they'll feel like they belong, and in that space they can then begin to exchange their life stories and begin to build empathy for the other. And see, so it's not just a physical space, but it's social, it's cultural, it's economic, and even now other things like social mobility begin to have a chance to take root.
Okay, I see.
Just from that shared space.
I hear
and
you.
I think there are also institutions that should be shared spaces, but are no longer that. When you think of schools and hospitals, you have your Kenyatta hospitals and you have your Nairobi and Aga Khans.
Yeah.
So, the type of people who go to those hospitals might never meet.
True.
Yeah.
And unless it's in a trade exchange, one person is one group of people is the workforce for the other group of people.
Yeah.
And you see, in that setting, then there's a power dynamic. And how have we come here all the way from informality, informal?
Dynamics.
I was just about to say that way. That's another very tricky one.
Yes.
So very
It
tricky
shows
one.
the flexibility. Pretty dance.
Spontaneity,
Yeah.
bro.
Spontaneity is what it is. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, but you just used a very interesting word there,
Mhm.
severity.
Severity.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, well, don't forget it's the root of the word civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, but it begins to look at what it is that we want to do with those shared spaces. What is it
Yeah.
that we want to happen in that kind of a space?
Yeah.
And severity is a good way to characterize that, because you see, severity envisages the situation where we are able to recognize the humanity of each of us. If I look at you and treat you like my moral equal, then I'm being civil. Yeah. And we want to be able to create spaces where we are able to treat each other as moral equals. So it's not that one person can accept that and the other one can't.
Yeah.
All of us want a clean environment. Yeah. So one of the things that we really want to do is to remove vulnerabilities. If it is raining, can we see to it that everybody has a nice place to step? Nobody has to walk in the mud.
Yeah.
Or if the weather is the other way, nobody has to worry in dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we are going to have some kind of a transaction, you talked about shoe cleaning, or I want to buy something, the kind of little thing you want to buy, bubble gum on the street. Can that transaction, buying, selling, be dignified? So that I don't have to lean down on the pavement to pick up
Recording in progress.
So the question of severity, the question of security. So if I am walking with a young child, I don't feel insecure, because we are able to then resolve some conflict about the uses of space that allows a person who is just strolling around, a pedestrian, to have the space to do that. It is creating the conditions that would allow all of us to treat each other in a civil way, and therefore to dignify every person and to dignify all the activities that go in and out there, and to remove any sense of anxiety or fear. So it's not insecure spaces, it's not constrained spaces, it's not conflicting or theaters of conflict. If we are able to do that, then we create spaces where all of us can feel we are dignified people, and we can therefore extend respect to each other.
Oh yeah.
I love that, Kabisa, and I'm all for it. There's a question I want to ask. Is there, all of this is true. And if there's anything, in fact, I agree 1000% with is the examples that you've given, especially if there's something that we know around in Kenya. I want to give them props. That seeing that there's more spaces around Nairobi, especially the CBD, where they're at least adding more and more cabro, or at least making it easier for pedestrians to walk across. That would give them props for. So, but there's the thing that we still find that is lacking is that you'd find that you're walking in a space where, number one, there's no trees, or any form of any artificial or natural shading that's provided for like pedestrians, which for me is like a whole thing. So when it's raining, you're exposed to the elements, unless it's like those very tiny eaves and balconies that are extending over the public buildings. If it's not, and it's not a palm tree in Nairobi, which honestly doesn't do anything for the rain. And if it's sunny, you're still exposed to the sun. Where if you do not have sunscreen, or urgently, if you're not prepared enough with like a cup or anything to shade yourself with, you're also going to be met by those harsh conditions, which I totally fully agree with. But now the question that comes to mind now, thinking of all of this and the dignity that we're looking to at least achieve and bring about in these spaces, is there any place that we know of right now, Kenya, Africa, or just anywhere, that really embodies this aspect of giving dignity to public spaces or places for interaction and things like that?
I don't know. Mwalimu, in your travels, in your explorations and reading, is there a place that you can think of?
Many. I can give you examples of many. But
wonderful.
Let me just comment on what Louis was saying there about the SPV Kabro in Nairobi, and how they are done. Now, we need to remind ourselves that the city streets, the urban streets, are really the main theater where we rub shoulders with each other. In fact, one famous architect, his name was Rui Khan, said that the street is a room by agreement. In other words, the streets are the living rooms of the city. Yeah, so it's important that when one is articulating an urban street, one remembers that there is indeed the need for people to meet up with each other. And because of this, we need to remember that, or make the observation that what really amounts to a warm urban street is one that satisfies certain urges within us. And I could ask you, when you feel this urge to go and walk around in town, what exactly are you hoping to find? What are you hoping that will satisfy you? People go into town to learn. And there are a lot of things we are learning. I learn what are the latest fashions because I'm able to see them. I learn what are the latest electronics. I learn what are the latest prices of these things. And the street then becomes a space for dialogue between the merchants of the city and potential customers. So when I stand in front of a shop, the merchant wants to display for me the latest fashion, wants to entice me with some nice clothing, so maybe some trousers or some beautiful shirts. Yeah, wants to show me the variety they have and entice me to enter their shop. I might even see the prices, yeah, or it is electronics or it is some other things. You have this window display, yeah, and this business we call window shopping, which is a very urban thing, but it is critical for the experience of serving in the city. This is the dialogue that happens on the street. Whether a shop is open or closed, there is information that is presented to you to absorb. And probably if it's closed, then you'll come for further inquiry. So when it's open, or if it's open, then you are being asked to walk in and see even more.
Yeah.
Now, when you take the pedestrian and remove them from this zone where they can interact with the merchants of the city, you harm both parties, in my view. You deny the pedestrian, of course, the possibility of satisfying their natural curiosities, but then you also deny the merchants, the opportunity to sell, by exposure.
Yeah.
The pedestrian path, the pedestrian presence that have been created in Nairobi are in the wrong place. Yeah. What should have been enhanced is the space next to the window, the shop windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we want. This is where the information is. This is what creates us. The person who did this, I don't know what they wanted. It's like they're telling you, hurry up and get out.
Again.
And yet, the warm city allows you to linger in front of a shop, see things, absorb information, walk slowly, bump into somebody you haven't seen for some time,
Yeah. Fully agree with that. And I think that's come across in one of the episodes you've done before. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take that and pack it. And let me point out that the whole question of public space actually has been in discussion now for quite some time. But we also note that even the old cities, if you go to a city like Rome, you will see that they had very, very conscious and very deliberate designs for what they call the piazzas,
Yeah. I knew that's where you're going. Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of especially European cities, have this. In Madrid, you have the plazas, Plaza Mayor, and so on. Places where people gather. After football, this is where they go. When there's a big thing, this is where people meet. And you see that in the old cities. Now, America is probably, their cities are probably newer. And maybe it took a little bit more time for the Americans, because the Americans, of course, are so beholden to the car. It's crazy. But they slowly began to discover that, no, you need to think about the pedestrians and you need to think about people, places where people can gather. And actually, America has done a lot of effort creating waterfronts, creating, those kind of people places.
Really? Okay.
We're talking about, and there are many. If you walk around New York now, you see they have gotten into this habit of creating mini parks. Yeah, just a little park somewhere just in the middle of the city, and there are many of them. And in a lot of them, you are able to sit down. There'll probably be a tree that offers some shade. Yeah, and you think New York is a very busy place, but there are many of these little pockets where you can find solace and you can, sit and just watch life walk by. Yeah. Now you ask for some of my favorites. I spent a lot of time in Baltimore at what they call the Inn Harbor. And I would ask you if you are able to look at that. The Inn Harbor is a fascinating little place. And every time I go there, I see a lot of things that make me really say, here they got it right. Times Square, New York has recently been in the last 10 or so years, it has been completely reorganized, and now it is a very hospitable place. By the way, one of the ways in which they were able to improve it is by bringing a special security unit, because the place used to be horrible in terms of pickpockets and that. So New York Times Square is good, but as I said, New York is full of little pockets now of these parks. There are others. I like the recently developed National Harbor. National Harbor is in Washington, D.C. I always get this address wrong. Actually, it's in Maryland, but in the part of metropolitan Washington, D.C. that extends into Maryland. But if you look up National Harbor and study that place again, you'll see a very present little place. I could mention a lot of others. Pier 39 in San Francisco. In Atlanta, I don't know what they call this little square. I forget. But there is a little place in Atlanta, Georgia, where, Atlanta is the headquarters of some big companies. The headquarters of CNN. There's the headquarters of Coca-Cola. And what they have done is that they have created, I don't know, it's a CNN museum, if you like, where people can go in and see how CNN works. But it is created as part of an urban complex that also has a Coca-Cola museum. Yeah, and also it has the Martin Luther King Civil Rights Center. That's not the official name. I'm forgetting the exact official name. But all these are sitting together in one little complex. And it's a nice people place, and people spend a lot of time there. Even in Australia, if you go to Sydney, you'll find a similar, people places. Circular Quay. Circular Quay is the area around Sydney Opera House, just below there and below the bridge, the harbour bridge. It's a fantastic little place. And then Darling Harbour, which is not very far from there. It's another people place that is beautiful to be in. It's very enjoyable. if you go to India, you go to end up in New Delhi, despite all the chaos of Indians. There's so-called
Honk,
place
please.
I
Oh,
like quite a
yeah,
lot.
you told us a lot.
Connaught Place in New Delhi. I thought it was well thought out. So it's another people place. Yeah, let me leave it there. I think a lot of people around the world are discovering the need to focus on certain urban areas, urban spaces, and turn them into people places. No cars, nothing, well secured in terms of well rates, security rating. You have comforts like benches and that kind of thing, drinking water and so on. And even in Africa, Cape Town, you see that. You see it also in Pretoria. Yeah.
Okay, those are actually so many nice examples. We'll make sure to link as many of them as we can in the description below.
Yeah, and probably seek some sponsor to help us see if we can go do these tours. I mean, hey.
Hey, sponsor.
It's for research. It's for research.
Yeah.
That it is.
Cool.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daktari. I don't know if you had one shot that will serve as a glimmer of hope. Because speaking for myself personally, I think nowadays I'm not as gloomy whenever I'm out and about, because I can see the different efforts that people are putting in to have a more intentional city, whether it's in their own compound as a private space, and even in shared public spaces, people are trying to do better. So just to pull other lians who are just constantly frustrated further into the light, what would be your parting shot?
Well, I know you guys are doing a lot of good work in terms of trying to clarify a lot of these things, and they're to our lives. But the key thing, I think, is to try and dignify our lives, to try and dignify the activities that we embark on, we get into in life, so that
I see it.
Yeah, I was going to
demonstrate
to remind ourselves that when we design and when we build between the customer and the shopkeeper, and everybody else who is coming in, this is what you're doing. You resolve relationships between people. You create a restaurant. You immediately resolve where are going to sit, where the kitchen is going to be, where the waiters are going to have their space, and so on. And so we need to be always conscious that when we do that, we are not compromising the dignity of our lives. Now, I was going to give you the example of a lot of markets that are being done in this country. If you go to almost any county, you are going to find that recently they have done what they like calling modern markets. And sometimes you ask yourself, how do they understand the activities that go on in the market? Because I feel that what some of these markets are doing is lowering the dignity of our people. They kind of look at what is an unsatisfactory situation where hawkers have come together and gotten into a space and started selling things. And then they want to kind of fix it. You understand? They want to make that to be the normal. Yeah. And yet, by so doing, I think they are not living up to their responsibilities. Because their responsibility ought to be, how do I interpret what is going on here in a way that dignifies this work? It dignifies the seller who is here, it dignifies the buyer. A lot of this small trade is happening in ways that we should all say this is not acceptable. This is not what we want to be like. We ideally should not be buying tomatoes off the pavement. If people have to buy clothes, then probably there ought to be a better environment for that, so that we can have a proper discussion about what will fit me and so on and so forth.
For sure.
So even though we want to keep it all very cheap and affordable, we want to make it easy for these people to trade, we do not have to compromise the dignity of everybody in order to achieve that. So it is critically important that we be focused on how do we create environments that dignify our life. Now, I talked about the little human needs. We could talk a lot about that. But you look at, for example, how issues of sanitation are handled in the public space. It's a bad situation, and we ourselves should be champions of something better. We should not allow these kind of things to be normalized. So this is the other important message that I would say, that we have to remember that just by the choices we have made in terms of what we want to be involved with, we must be advocates of what is good, not just what is cheap or affordable. What is good, and the test for good is, does it maintain everybody's dignity? Yes, especially those who are vulnerable, and vulnerability can be physical, it can be economic, it can be anything. But we must see the humaneness of every person. So we are talking about, just to borrow the language of earlier, we are talking about creating, bringing civility into our environments, urban environments, so that all of us can believe that we are all deserving of respect, and that the environments allow us to extend respect and to receive respect from our colleagues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kigara. So guys, design for dignity. That's what I've gotten from the parting shots.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Design for dignity. D for D. That's a really nice. I love it.
Not just for not just for
band, M for
affordability.
M, D for D.
Boom. You know what it is. Wow. Yeah, so this is what we meant by, we usually aim for 40 minutes to an hour. But then we end up here way over that mark. But there's one thing is consistent, we never regret it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We're very flexible. That we are.
Freedom to dance.
We have the freedom to dance. Yes.
I'm afraid a lot of the guys won't get that one, but okay, cool.
Well, inside joke. You had to be there.
You just had to be there. You just had to be there.
Mutufuate, please follow us on our socials, please. That's how you can do that, by the way. That's one very good way of you being there.
Good, nice segue. Good job.
Hey, I never saw it coming.
Let's on our social. Don't be afraid to DM us. Give us your thoughts. Share anything else. If there's any additional thoughts that you'd like to add on this, if there's anything that you thought was missing or anything, feel free. Our ears are open. Our lines are open. Fanyeni ile kitu. And is there anything else? Also, we do a lot of these rants as well within ourselves, not necessarily also with guests in these other episodes that we'll be doing. Hopefully you've already had some of them and more to come. So a lot of ways to consume our content and be there as well. So yeah, I think that's it. But with that, yes, really powerful words. I really don't want to dilute it by me going into other things. It's come to that point where we have to say goodbye, and we will catch you in the next one. And I don't know if if you've ever done a goodbye section in an episode would be at first podcast episode, but we'd like for you to mtufungie episode. Adjourn this episode.
Wait, Dr. Kigara, are we your first podcast?
Say that again, Danny.
Are we first podcast?
So,
Oh,
I don't think I've done
honor.
I forget
Well,
because I had to record a lot of these things.
I'm trying to look
so-
for those reactions. Yeah. Not like Google Meets where you can do multiple.
Yeah.
Yep.
One.
You already know what the reactions are.
We definitely will. We definitely will. Now we want you to say goodbye on our behalf. to our guest.
Oh, is there a protocol? I don't know. How do you do that?
You surprise us. We like surprises.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
well,
not too structured about it.
Yeah. we like to have the benefits of order without killing the vibrancy of expression.
You know,
Very well said.
design, and this is Tomorrow by Design. Design is the one place where all of us can interact. Everybody is able to find an opinion because we meet there. We all use space, and we all express ourselves in space, and we all benefit from good expression of space. And so to be able to discuss this out in the open, to be able to dissect what is good, what is bad, what's giving, and so on. I think it's a fantastic way to engage with the public. And so one would hope that we will be able to get an audience for these things, and we will be able to then use that as well for more engagements. And so I would be to encourage everybody to keep tuned to this channel and see what other views we are able to interrogate next time.
Yes,
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Bye. Bye.
Wonderful.
it.
Makofi.
See, I'm telling you, this thing it should have sound effects.
Yes.
The react button.
And listen to him. He said, stay tuned to this channel. You better stay tuned.
He's threatening our listeners.
Just listen.
Annie.
I'm threatening
Oh
you
my
to stay
goodness.
safe and listen to this channel forever.
Okay, I'm frightened.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I did it
Yes.
myself.
Yes.